Hello, this is Todd Hubbs, agricultural economist at the University of Illinois. Today I'm talking about my weekly outlook from April 13th, 2020, soybean and corn export outlook. Yeah, we've seen some stronger corn sales recently and a little bit of weakness in the soybean export market as China's been sourcing from Brazil predominantly over the last few weeks, bringing in some of that huge Brazilian crop. As we turn to planting season and the new realities associated with the pandemic, export markets are going to be key in price formation as we move through 2020 for both corn and soybean. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about where we're at and where I see us headed as we move deeper into 2020. In last week's WASDE report, the USDA lowered soybean exports 50 million bushels to 1.775 billion bushels. And currently, we're really not even on pace to hit that number. Now, we could see some strength as we move into the summer, as we have seen over the last couple of marketing years, but we really need to pick up the pace. What I'm showing you here in this graph is the total commitments, outstanding sales, and export shipments through April 2nd for this marketing year on the left and for last marketing year on the right. And as you can see, we're behind the pace from last year's number. Right now, we've got about 193 million bushels of outstanding sales, and China is holding on to a mere 17 million bushels of that. We need about another 560 million bushels of exports to hit USDA's projection. And so we're going to need to see another performance through the late spring and summer months like we saw last year, where we did about 616 million bushels between April and August. Right now, the pace has been really slow. We've seen really strong exports out of Brazil. I'm going to talk about that a little bit in the next slide. What you're seeing in this graph is monthly exports out of Brazil using COMEX Viz data and U.S. exports monthly, and it's on a marketing year basis. As you can see, the United States is behind the 5-year average. We saw Brazil last month did about 426 million bushels of exports, which is a huge number for March. We don't have official March data in the U.S. yet, but we are behind our 5-year average pace, and the number of sales have been weakening recently. It's my expectation that Brazil will do a huge number in April as well, based on the bookings that have been in place. So while we have seen weak exports out of the U.S. for soybeans, it doesn't mean the global market's weak per se. As China's building back up their hog herd, their crush margins have improved a little bit lately. And we've seen them get off to a really slow pace on their commitment to reach a Phase 1 trade deal. Through the first 2 months, they've only done 2.4 billion bushels. So my expectation as we move deeper into 2020 is China turns back away from Brazil and to us for soybeans. We'll see soybean exports pick up, particularly to China, but in other places. Now, this is very dependent on how the supply chains turn out. If we can keep the flow going and no issues in China or anywhere else, I think you're going to see some good support for soybean exports at these lower prices as we get deeper into 2020. The USDA held the corn export forecast constant at 1.725 billion bushels for the 1920 marketing year. We've seen really strong sales recently, and there's quite a bit of outstanding sales for corn right now. The world corn market, we've seen Brazil's exports fall precipitously in the first 3 months of 2020. They're down around 40%. You can see the tight supplies on strong corn prices down there, and there's a lot riding on that safrinha crop for Brazilian domestic corn users. Ukraine thus far has done around 945 million bushels of the USDA forecasted 1.26 billion bushels. I think as we move through into the summer, U.S. is going to be very competitive for corn exports at these much lower prices, and I think you'll see the strength continue. What you're seeing in this graph is our total commitments. Now, we are below last year's pace, but you have to remember our forecast is much below last year's total exports for the marketing year as well. We're seeing real strength out of places like Mexico, Japan, and South Korea. China's barely come into the market, even though they have bought some bushels for the 2020-2021 marketing year. So as we move deeper into 2020, I think you'll see U.S. corn exports continue their strength. We need about another 906 million bushels to hit the USDA's projection through April 2nd. We've got outstanding sales of 557 million bushels right now, and I think we're going to continue to see that strength happen as we move through the late spring here and into the summer, particularly if the safrinha crop turns out to be poor in Brazil. We continue to see economic contraction due to the coronavirus outbreak. As long as we can keep our supply chains in place, I think you're going to see strong export numbers as we get deeper into 2020 for corn in particular, but for soybeans as well in the latter part of 2020. These export numbers are going to be key in price formation this year, as we've seen domestic demand for corn get really hurt by a loss of the ethanol market. We still continue to see good crush in soybeans, but if we can't pick up the export pace, we're going to see higher ending stocks in 1920. I'm optimistic on both fronts for exports as we move forward to see stronger numbers than we saw in the first half of this marketing year, and it'll be key in price formation as we get deeper into 2020. I'd like to thank you for your time. You can find my weekly outlook and daily analysis of issues related to Corn Belt farm economics at farmdocdaily.illinois.edu. I hope to see you soon.